What's up, guys? Welcome back to the ASAP Automotive channel. Today we're back at it again with the LSTJ. And this time, in this episode, we're going to be focusing on updating our fuel system. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in. So today, like we said, we're going to be dealing with the fuel system in this Jeep. Now, the Jeep system is actually pretty adequate. The only issue that we've got with our particular application is that new engine wants almost 60 psi fuel pressure, and that fuel pump's regulated at like 40. Now, if you've got an 05 or up, it's the newer system, if it's like 50 or 60 something psi or something like that. So if you're dealing with like Novak or something like that, they've got two basic kits for these TJs. There's the regulated version like we've got here that we'll be dealing with today. And then they've also got a non-regulated. The non-regulated is going to be for your, don't quote me, but I think it was somewhere around 05, 04 that they changed the fuel systems in these and bumped up the fuel pressure. So the fuel pump's very capable of handling that kind of pressure and stuff. So there's no need to really upgrade it today. But what we're going to do is this whole system here is actually all right around on the tank. So what we're going to be doing today is actually dropping the fuel tank out, pulling it down, pulling the fuel sending module or sending unit, the module out. We're going to take it apart, do some modifications to it, do away with the hose assembly on top of it, install that setup on it, and go back together with it. And that tackles the rear end of the fuel system. We actually, with the cool thing with this kit is you're able to reuse that whole line going up front. And then all we have to do is get another line made from the end where it connected before up to the engine, and we'll talk about that later. But first things first, let's go ahead and get to dropping this tank. All right guys, so even the best of us get ahead of ourselves sometimes. I didn't think about it before we put this thing up on the lift, but one of the first things you need to do is actually remove this piece here. And this is over on this side. So this little trim bezel piece, whatever you want to call it, goes right here on the side where your filler neck is. So there's 4 screws on the outside here and 4 screws on the inside that connect the fuel neck to this piece. So all you've got to do, pull your fuel cap off, take these 4 out, take these 4 out, and this piece comes out. Quick little tech tip. I'd put your fuel cap back on, that way you don't have any possibility as you're dropping the tank of any dirt getting down in it that you don't want. Dirt doesn't go through a fuel system very well. So next thing we're going to go ahead and do is get our lines disconnected and then work on dropping our bolts out. Alright guys, so like I said, the next thing we're going to be doing is disconnecting our fuel line. So you've just got, this is a what they call a returnless style fuel system. There's just one line going out and no return. That's why we've got the regulator set up and all that in it, and why we've got that that Corvette style fuel filter. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and push these tabs in here and here to release this, to go ahead and take this line off. It never fails. It's like a motorcycle or something goes right by while we're trying to film. So yeah. First world problems, guys. So anyways, push in this tab here and this tab there. You can do both of them. You can get on this side and squeeze in. Little trick, if you pull this forward a little bit, releases some tension, it'll release easier, and then pull back and the line will come off. You might get a little fuel out of there, but everything's already disconnected. There's no power going to it. And then we're going to go ahead and disconnect this vent hose here and go ahead and pull it off. So quick little tech tip, guys. Sometimes, I mean, why would you ever have dirt in there? It's not like you take a Jeep off-road or anything. You can get some, you'll find there might be dirt packed all up in there or something like that in those clips, or mud or something. If you're like me and you grew up in Florida and you spent your life in the swamp, go ahead and take an air nozzle, or and some brake clean, go ahead and blow that out and clean it out before you do. Ours was pretty clean, so we're fine, but just to give you guys a little heads up real quick. So now we got the 2 lines, the line and the hose released. Next thing we're going to work on is go ahead and drop in all these bolts. This tank's actually held up by this shield here. So we got what, 1, 2, 3 on the back, and then we got like 5 on the, or well, 3 on the front, and then like 5 on the back. We're going to drop that We've got our transmission jack underneath here to go ahead and catch this bad boy, and then we'll ease it on down. All right, guys, I need to go ahead and correct myself real quick. So we've got 3 nuts on the front that come off, and we've got 4 on the back. And that's because, if you'll notice on the front earlier we showed, there's a hinge point here. And what that is that's a strap going over the top of the tank, and this is underneath the bottom of the tank, this shield here. And that's where these come out here. These 2 studs that come out with the nuts on them. Fortunately, Jeep was nice enough to put a rubber cover over it, which most manufacturers don't, but we're not going to be dealing with those today because we don't need to pull the tank out of this shielding. We're just going to be taking this nut here, this one, and these 2 over here. So when you're pulling this apart, remember, you don't have to mess with these, just these here, and then the 3 on the front, because you want to drop the whole thing down. And with what we're doing today, you know, we don't need to pull the tank out of the shield. We're just taking the sending unit out. So that being said, they're all 13 millimeters. We're going to go ahead and run those out and drop the tank down. All right, guys, so now we got our tank out, set down on a good level, steady surface. Next thing we need to do is we're gonna go ahead and work on getting the sending unit out. What we're gonna do is come over here, go ahead and get our fuel pump harness connector here off. And if we can do that without breaking these, that'd be awesome. Push that back in there like, no. All right, gonna get that out of the way. Next we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take this line off here because we're not gonna end up not reusing that anyways. Actually, we're gonna end up not reusing this piece. That's all new in the regulator assembly. Set that off to. All right, guys, now that we got our hose off of here, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and remove this regulator assembly. And it's pretty easy. You just come in here with a little screwdriver, pop the tab off, do the same on this side, and voila. So now we're gonna go ahead and by the way, we went ahead and cleaned this off a good bit too before we got into this. You notice we broke some more dirt here loose now that we got deeper into it. Before we pull this out, we're gonna go ahead and clean this off and then go ahead and pull the regulator assembly out. Now we got all that little loose dirt out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get underneath here and start working our regulator assembly up. It's probably not going to want to come too easy, but just get around and just kind of walk it off a little bit. And there. Where's that bad boy that want to come? There we go. All right. And it pops out just like that, and that's your actual factory fuel regulator assembly. And this is the new head here, and then it's also regulated by this filter here. It's actually the same one that comes on like the Corvettes and stuff like that. So the later earlier C5s. So my Corvette has a later fuel system with no serviceable fuel filter, which is awesome. Thanks, GM. All right, now that we got the regulator head out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and knock this lock ring loose. Now there are cool little tools out there that you can get that fit over these. If you do a bunch of these, it's probably great. I don't have this particular one. So in this case, we're gonna go ahead and take a good, flat edge like this and just walk around with a dead blow and just kind of start knocking it loose. All right, just one big old lock ring. So now we'll go ahead and fish this past harness. Go ahead and blow this off again real quick. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and pull the whole assembly on out and drop off the fuel sock, because why not? And cool. You can actually turn this bad boy back over and dump your fuel out, so you're not dealing with it, because we're about to take this apart. Yay, I get to go fishing for a fuel sock. Yay. All right, guys, so this is the basic gist of how one of these fuel sending unit modules, whatever you want to call them, looks like. Yours might be a little bit different. This one's got an aluminum housing. Could be if somebody's changed it out at some point, you know, aftermarket or whatever. But the basic idea here is we're going to go ahead and unplug the sending unit right here. So we'll just release this tab. Go ahead and work this up nice and easy. So that's released. And we got to go ahead and disconnect our fuel pump, which we'll do that in just a second. So we'll go ahead and push these tabs in. Push in just like that. Careful, you don't want to press too hard. Might be a little brittle. Alright guys, so the next step we got to do, now that we've got the top hat off, got our connectors disconnected, so we did have a bit of an issue getting the fuel pump connector itself loose off of there. It was a little bit of a pain, just got to work with it a little bit, especially this thing being, what, 18 years old with 180 something thousand miles. So anyways, the next thing we're going to do is we've got to drill a 1/2 inch size hole in the top of this hat, somewhere over in this proximity right here, because our end goal is what we want it to look like is something like that, and that's going to be part of our return hose for the regulated system. So that being said, yes, this is completely overkill. It is about right up my avenue normally, but in this case my freaking drill is at the house. You never have what you need in the right place. So my cordless drill, that is. So we're using this big bad boy. So anyways, we got it in the vise set here. Please forgive my vise, it's just sitting here because I haven't bolted it down yet. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and set it right about meow, and I'll hold down on that side there because it's gonna wanna. Yep. All right. Go ahead and set it right off in there somewhere. There's like 2 ribs on the bottom side here, so I'm trying to avoid them. So alright guys, so now that I actually got a drill bit that actually works, you know your drill bit's really dull when it doesn't even want to drill through plastic. So anyways, we got that drilled out. So what we're going to do is use a little bit of this Permatex, this MotoSeal fuel resistant. Novak says something about using like a 1B Permatex. So this one's great because it's going to be around fuel, and so I don't have to worry about it. So that being said, what we're going to do is put us a little bead around here. Just kind of brush it on a little bit. And then what we're going to do is on the other side, same thing. Okay. And we're just going to let that sit for about a minute. That's what this stuff says to do. So let it kind of, I guess, cure or whatever a little bit, or set up. So once we do that, we're going to go ahead and work on putting our washers on and then putting our fitting on. All right. So we got our little plastic washers. We got that one on this side. Got that one on there. Went ahead and screwed this in. It was tight enough I can screw it in, or if you got it drill enough, it'll just drop right in. So we know we got a good snug fit. Now what we're gonna do is go ahead and put our nut on, and we'll go ahead and snug that down. You're dealing with plastic here, so you don't have to get really tight or anything like that. Just enough's all you need. So we're going to go ahead and snug that down, and we're ready to go on to the next step. Alright guys, so while you're in here this deep into the fuel system, you could just go ahead and put it all back together, throw in the new regulator hat and all that. But you're this deep in, you might as well go ahead and check a couple things. Down in the bottom down here are two separate strainers. This is the old ones that come out, all nice and dirty and full of all kind of fun stuff. That's the new ones. So that being said, we're in this deep, we're gonna go ahead and change them. Truth be told, this thing's got 180 something thousand miles on it. It's the original pump. We're probably gonna end up having to go back in, but for right now, to keep cost at bay, but it's no big. We can, let's say if the fuel pump does crap out, it's no big. We don't have to change this whole fuel sending unit. You can change just the pump, so we can go, right back in and just change it out. So for right now, we're gonna go ahead and just run it with this. So that being said, once you pull all this out, which I already took it out earlier and cleaned everything up. So you're gonna pull the fuel pump out. This will come out. The strainer will be on the bottom here, and it just pops right on there. And you'll see how all this goes back in a second. But all right, so in the bottom of the pump housing here, you see the hole down there. There's a divot. So sitting down in there is this little setup right here, which is a little bypass valve, or guess whatever you can say, a balancing valve. So what we're going to do is this is going to go face down. You want the rubber facing down. So what you can do here is take a long screwdriver, go ahead and center it up right in the center there, and then just flip it right over. And 60% of the time it works every time. So should look something like that sitting down in there. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our new strainer on the bottom of the pump. And the way you're wanting to do is, you'll see it's got this side here and this side here with a little V sticking up. You can see that there. So that's going to line up right here in this groove. And we're just going to go ahead and pop that bad boy on there. Not going to really want to, but we're going to make it. There we go. Okay. And it fits all good and snug in there like that. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and set that back down in there. Now, what the reason this strainer is here is when you fill up the tank, this thing fills up with fuel in here, and it should, because that's what keeps the fuel pump lubricated, well, this side, yeah, this side does, keeps everything lubricated, and also keeps it cool, and this keeps everything clean on this side. And that little bypass valve or balance valve in there balances between in here and outside the tank. So this filters any of the fuel down in here, and this one here is for out in the tank. So in case you're wondering why there's two of them, now you know. So we'll go ahead and set it back down in there, and it should set something like that right there. All right, and you can feel it set down into that hole. So now that we got that in there, next thing we want to do is put our spring back on. So we're going to go ahead and slide it right over this tube, right on there like so. Make sure it's seated. And now we can go ahead and reconnect our hat. So we're going to come over here, reconnect our fuel pump connection that we disconnected earlier. All right, that was just like that. And they're like, meow. Alright, ahead. This little nipple here will go down in the spring, and that actually goes down into that rubber right there. Go ahead and line all that up. Alright, now once you get everything lined up, you can go ahead and press your little tabs in. It should slide over pretty easy. And there you go. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we got the top on. We can go ahead and connect our fuel sending unit connector. And make sure it's good on there and seated. Little tabs down in there in the recess. And now we can go ahead and put our strainer on. And what you're going to want to do, see how it's got a hole here, and this part here is where it mounts on the bottom of the housing. And this is so that little leg can go through. Those are little legs that sit on the bottom of the fuel tank. And just take it nice and easy and make sure it's good and seated. Now we can go back to putting the rest of the system together. So we're going to go ahead and drop our whole sending unit back in. Go ahead and fish our float back in. So if you have any trouble getting this to seat down into the rubber gasket there, you can put you a little bit of any kind of lubricant, like a good grease or something like that, or something in there. So I've seen some people like spray a little bit of WD-40 around there or something. Any kind of good lubricant, I guess, will work. I don't know if I'd really use WD-40, but they'd each their own. Alright, so go ahead and clock it. So it's got a little arrow right here telling you that your fuel line is coming right out this way. Go ahead and we're just going to set it down in the groove. Well, I guess in our case we're going to have to put this on first, which is no big. There we go, that's nice. Got our good and lined up there. Oh hey, it's wanting to be a butt head. Surprise, surprise. Alright. Okay, so alright, kind of walk your way around and make sure everything's seated good. Last thing you want is any fuel spilling out when you're going down the road. So next thing we're going to do, we got this lined up. We're going to go ahead and put our retaining ring back on. Another thing too, guys, tip earlier, or meant to say earlier, was rather than using just the method that like I used earlier, you can also get, if you got like a good strap wrench or something, you can use that around there too. Or like I said, they make, I know OTC makes them, the tools you can actually use to, it like goes over it, and you can loosen it that way, but this case works just fine. So one thing you do want to make sure of, and it's always fun, is threading this thing on the right way. You don't want to cross thread it. Alright guys, we're going to stop it off there for tonight. So, and we'll be back soon here shortly with part 2 of the fuel system, where we finish it up and show you guys how we finished putting everything together. Ended up being kind of a longer video, so we don't want to bore you guys with that. So, in the meantime, hope you guys enjoyed it and liked it. We love, like I said, we love doing these videos. Love the feedback from you guys. If you hadn't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications when we put out new videos. Also, don't forget to check out our sister channel, MacGyver's Workshop, my dad's shop, or his channel. He's got a bunch of cool stuff over there, all kind of random videos, how-tos, different stuff he's out at the racetrack. You never know, so keeps it interesting. So until next time, guys, remember, stock is not an option.